Welcome to your Daily 5 for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Within the last, I want to say, month, I had done a 5 talking about Nintendo's plans to raise their game prices, and of course, many other companies probably following suit. And I had said at that time that, hey, you know what, there's a really easy way not to worry about this, and it's not to pay those prices. And sure enough, within the last couple days, there has been news of something else that Nintendo is planning to do in regards to their Switch 2, which is that they have said that they have some type of mechanism, and I have not found any specific details, but you can imagine there's probably any number of ways they could do this, that they will be able to disable any Switch 2 device that they find is violating whatever their usage terms are. And generally, what that has been in the past is Nintendo has been very, very anti-piracy, meaning that if you attempted to run any version of, even if you tried to show emulated versions of their software on a YouTube channel. There's famously a YouTuber whose channel is called Retro Game Core, who was getting annihilated by copyright strikes and being harassed by Nintendo for just showing Nintendo games on these little handheld consoles that you can run pirated games on. Admittedly, they are technically in violation of copyright, but in many cases, as this individual showed on his channel, he did own the original games and was simply running them on hardware that couldn't support the gigantic Nintendo cartridges. But that's a whole secondary discussion for another day. So essentially, this is not something new to Nintendo, but the idea that they would disable your console and essentially brick it, that is something I don't think they ever said they could do, at least not that I know of with the original Switch, but they are now very clearly saying that up front. And on the surface, that sounds somewhat reasonable. Okay, you're running a pirated version of their software. They should have the ability to stop you from doing that. Sure. Except that those terms and what they apply those terms to could change in a month. They could come out and say, well, we don't want you running anything that you've bought in any place but the official Nintendo store. And if you do it, we're going to brick your console, or we're going to degrade it, or we're going to turn down the performance, or whatever. Now, many people will say, well, that's insane. They're not going to do that. Well, okay, if you really want to bank on that, then I guess go ahead. But we've seen very, very, more than a few times, and in very recent cases, that things that people thought couldn't ever possibly happen are, starting to happen. So, if you really implicitly trust Nintendo that much, then I guess go ahead and assume they're never going to do anything other than turn your machine off if you run a pirated version of their game. But this is yet again, I'm just stressing here, I'm not telling anybody what to do necessarily, but I know for me that any chance that I was thinking about buying a Switch 2 has been completely wiped away. Honestly, at this point, and I will admit this is also a byproduct of the fact that I feel like I don't need to play Nintendo games anymore. I don't care how great the next Zelda or Metroid or whatever is. There are so many options for great gaming now that I don't need Nintendo anymore. That's not true for everybody. And there are people who are willing to forgive anything Nintendo does because they so enjoy those games. I'm not even necessarily criticizing those people. I'm just saying I know that this message will go completely by those individuals. But for anybody else, again, to kind of echo what I said about the price going up thing, the $80 game price, you have the ability to change these things. Just because Nintendo has made a declaration doesn't mean it's actually carved in stone. If they saw people responding to this by not buying the Switch 2, and specifically citing the higher game prices and this management option on their consoles, a thing that they explicitly are supposed to own, then I would bet that would change pretty quickly. Now, do I expect that? Absolutely not. The reality is that most people just assume that nothing bad will ever happen to them, and therefore they don't have to exercise any actual control to make sure that nothing bad will happen to them, and so they just go along with stuff like this. But do I think it's a good thing? No. I don't think it's a good thing because there is nothing, and as far as I know, no legislation, nothing legal, no commitments here, that any of the terms that apply today, defining what these violations would be, can't be changed tomorrow, and potentially in ways that allow them to brick your console for any number of reasons. I don't think they would just instantly do that. I think they would warn you and they would push you towards paying for something. But the reality is, this type of thing should be a direct test of how much you trust a company. And the level of that trust should determine whether you are willing to sign over to these terms. That's all I wanted to say. Later.